Welcome back. Here we are in the same hoop house a couple hours later, and as you can see, it looks a little different. I finished trellising all of the tomato plants that we were working on this morning, and the whole hoop house is now set up with these lines that go basically from the tomatoes all the way up to these poles that I've run through the rafters, and the tomato plants will crawl up the length of the line throughout the season. Now, as I said earlier, this is our cherry tomato house, and the middle two rows here on either side of me are the sun gold tomatoes, and those are very prolific. A couple of these other cherries are the first time I'm trying them this season, but I know the sun golds at least will reach all the way up to the rafters 3 times. What I'll do is, as they get up to the top, as you can see, if I can get up close enough, I made a little loop in each of the strings. And as the sun gold plant gets up to the rafters, I'll take another rope and attach it through this, cut this, and lower the whole plant down and let it lay down out along the ground horizontally and slightly curve back up. And it will move down the length of the greenhouse. And I'll, as I said, put a rope in here and attach it again down here. So the whole plant will lay down like this and continue to grow upward. That way we can get more production than this. This is about 8 feet, but I'll get about 24 to 32 feet depending on the length of the season, whether it gets cold early or not. So that'll allow me to get a maximum of production out of these plants. Now let's take a closer look at what I've done to prune and trellis. Let's take a look at this plant here. As I said this morning, everywhere where the horizontal branches meet the main stem, there is a shoot that comes out, and as you can see here, I've clipped this one off. It's leaking a little bit, but that's no problem. That's just a natural defense that the plant has to losing a limb. It'll seal itself over, and in a couple days this will start to harden and be brown. And everywhere where there is a joint like this, there'll be a shoot. There hasn't been one here, but now that I've cut these all off, the plant senses that. You can see there was one here. You might be able to see that light spot in between. There was one there. There was one there, a little tiny one. There wasn't one here. It'll send out another one. And sun gold in particular, in maybe a month's time, will send out another shoot from here. The rest of the plants, they may do that. I don't know in their natural habitat, but here in Maine, it's not a long enough season. But the sun golds are particularly prolific, and they'll send out additional shoots from the same crotch essentially, and I'll have to come back and clip them. So you have to prune like this. As you can see, I've actually, on the sun golds, I've cut off the branches themselves too, because they were resting on the hay down here, and I don't want them to be collecting moisture and getting damp, because then that'll spread diseases up through the length of the tomato. So I've cut off those bottom branches so that there's space underneath, basically for air to circulate and keeps them from getting damp and diseased. Then after I've done all my pruning, I always do everything in stages. First I went through and pruned all the plants. Then I went through and hung all of the twine. And then finally what I do is come back through one final time and put on the clips. As you can see, they grab right onto the twine here, and then they just clip together around the plant. You want to always do it underneath one of the horizontal branches, never under one of your fruit clusters, because these are very thin, as you can see, and they can't support the weight of the plant. But the branches will expand at the same rate as this main stem, and they'll be able to support the weight of the plant. So as you can see, these plants are quite tall, and I only had to start one here, start a clip here. Sometimes on some of the smaller plants, maybe you could see over there in the corner, I guess not, but some of the shorter plants that grow a little less quickly, you have to start way down at the bottom with your clip, otherwise they'll topple over. Try to find one here that has, I've gone through and clipped. Here you can see, here's one right here. You can see here, as I said, when I get near the top, I like to leave the side shoots, just in case when I'm trellising, I break this off for some reason. So now that I'm sure that everything's all set, I can come back in, and as I said earlier, you don't need scissors if you do it when they're really young. You can just pinch it and pull it right off, and that's all you need to do. And that will put all of your energy into the main stem and allow it to grow up. What's going to happen though is as it goes up the length of this twine, everywhere the stem's going to continue to send out these side branches, and they're going to continue to get side shoots. So every couple weeks, every week later in the season, we'll have to come through and continue to prune off all the side branches that are low and all of the suckers that come where the branches meet the main trunk. And that's pretty much all there is to it. It's a little bit of labor throughout the season after the initial planting, mulching, and trellising up to the rafters. Then, as I said, it's just a matter of coming in every couple of weeks and cleaning up the plants, getting rid of those side shoots, and maybe in another, I'll say, 3 weeks, we'll have our first fruit off these sun golds and some of these other varieties that have started to flower as well. So I hope you've enjoyed this little tutorial, and if you don't have a hoop house, you can apply these same principles outside. They'll grow a little bit slower, but you still should prune and train your tomatoes if you want to get maximum fruit production and have nice clean fruit, keeping it off the ground. If you use the wire cages on an indeterminate tomato like these, you're just going to have too much vegetative growth and not enough energy being put into the fruit. So I would recommend that you prune and trellis your tomatoes, whether inside or outside, and enjoy the fruits of your labor.